Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Tanya here, and I'm live with Amber Choisella. Am I saying that right? Your last
You
name?
are.
Hey,
Yep.
good.
Excellent.
Welcome Amber, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So the audience knows I'm really excited about this conversation with Amber because she has a background in psychology, and but with a different twist. As I'm been connecting with more and more quote unquote people in the professional world of psychology and therapy, kind of moving more towards, being outside of the box and really connecting with, how do I want to say? Do you want to put it into words, Amber?
Integrating more spirituality and elevating our consciousness discussions within therapy, and normalizing that. I don't think that talk therapy is just effective just on its own. We have to include other meaningful things. So it's an integrative approach for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much with my, I have a background in Waldorf education, and I taught at a charter school. So because it was state funded, what was so challenging about that is I could not say the word spirit or soul or anything like that. And when it's like, but wait a minute, that's like such an integral part of being human, is the fact that we are spiritual beings. And so, yeah, there is kind of like this huge separation. Like you're either this or you're that, and there's no blending of the two. So I'm curious if you would be willing to share like your journey, like where did you start and how did you come to this conclusion of realizing, I need to bring this into my work and my service?
Yeah, so I guess it would start from birth. I've always had experiences, spiritual phenomena, psychic phenomena, mediumistic phenomena, and it wasn't until I was 21 years old when I received a prophetic message, and it ended up coming true. Like 6 days later, 6 days later. And so a friend of mine at that time was like, "You're psychic. You need to go and be around other psychics." And so then I found modern spiritualism. So during that time, I was still in grad school to become a psychotherapist, which I am now. And so I've worked in many different populations, like not all, but a majority of populations when you think of mental health, I've had experience in. And so when I finally got licensed, I always told myself, once I get licensed, I'm just going to go off and do my spiritual stuff, because I was doing that on the side, but I couldn't give it its full attention. Like I was still developing it as a medium, and developing my psychic traits and just all of that, but I just didn't have the space to actually devote myself to it. And so due to burnout, spirit guided me to say goodbye to this construct of what success looks like in the 3D world. Very recently, I left my job on the 27th of December, and I've been doing therapy really part-time, 25 hours a week, but just that alone allows me to just like take care of everything that I need to take care of. And then I still have the space for my spiritual work. And so with my new clients now, like one of the cultural consideration aspects that I asked during assessment is, hey, so, what's your religious or spiritual background? Like, I'm trying to think of some strengths that we can pull in. And so then when they say, not really religious, or I have religious trauma, or like cult like stuff, I'm actually really spiritual. I actually believe that there's something else out there that is not what religion tells us. And then that's my lead way to be like, okay, well, I'm very intuitive, and I use that in my work. And I may mention words like energy, or I'm feeling like this, as far as like how you're presenting, right? Like client could come in and be like, so how's things been? Things have been great. And I'm like, oh, okay, like intuitively, that doesn't feel right. Like your energy is saying something else. Let's really get at it. That's been really beneficial for me. And so I feel it's a strength to incorporate it in my work as a
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so interesting when you say, there's something about, I just wanna call it the matrix or the old paradigm of business and, like you said, success,
Mhm.
that really it's like people burn out. I mean, I just see it left and right. So many people and so many people leaving, especially women leaving corporate America,
Yep.
um, totally burned out and be like, "Yeah, I'm done doing that for, that big corporation over there, and I'm gonna just totally go into, yoga or,
Mhm.
or some kind of alternative, thing that is, much more natural." Like, there's just
Mhm.
something that's unnatural about a lot of, I feel like the things that are established in academia, right? And it's very closed off to allowing, um, investigation of something different, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like we've made science into our idol or our god, and we've forgotten that science is supposed to be actually asking questions, not this final definition of like, "Oh, this is it," right? Like, "This is psychotherapy. This is how this is how we do this. This is how we treat mental health,
Yeah.
is through cognitive behavioral therapy," or all these other things. So, I'm really curious for you and your observation when you decided really just to take courage and be like, "You know what? I'm gonna start bringing this into my work." Um, what did you notice a shift in your clients? Like, how did that what was the impact when you started to really trust your own intuition and your own spiritual gifts and bringing them in?
Well, that happened really, that's still very recent. Like, I'm still building up my caseload, but all my new clients are in alignment with the things that I am so passionate about. In fact, I have one new client who told me that she's seeing things and hearing her name being called like right after her grandmother's passing. And I was like, I'm one of those therapists that I'm not going to just automatically say that's a hallucination. Like, let's explore that a little bit more. And does it have any meaning for you? You said it happened right after your grandmother's passing. Like, that's not weird. That's actually really natural. Like, let's not label this, right? Because I hear stuff. Being a medium, I hear things, I see things, I feel things, and I'm in my right mind 100%.
Yes.
It
Right?
doesn't cause any impairments in my life, it enhances. And then if I give you information that's evidential that I would not know, I should not know, then that tells you that I'm not mentally ill.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't, but they get labeled that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember when, I went to see a naturopath, and we've
Mhm.
become actually really good friends, but at the time when I went to see her, I was just dealing with some health stuff, some chronic fatigue and whatever, and in her intake, I was just explaining to her my Kundalini awakening and what all
Mhm.
that happened and transpired during that time, which was pretty extreme, and she says, "You realize that this is the kind of thing that gets people put into mental institutions."
Mhm.
I'm like, "Yeah." Yes, I do realize that, but do I sound crazy to you? Like, does it seem like I'm out of my mind? Like, no, like, these are experiences that happen, and, it's interesting, like, I watched a documentary about when you talk about people passing, and I can't remember the name of it, it's recent, but it's a documentary about, connecting with loved ones on the other side, and, in this documentary, this person, connects with her loved ones through writing, through automatic
Mhm.
like,
Yep.
he speaks to me, I write it down, it's an ongoing relationship, And what was so sad to see, you could see that they had, I mean, the the learned psychotherapist or psychoanalyst, whatever, having this conversation with her, you could sense like he was trying to convince her that she was crazy, like this isn't
Yeah.
normal. And have you ever thought that maybe this is a mental illness? And she just kind of looked at him like, screw you,
Yeah.
dude. Like,
Right.
like
I
back.
look at I look at how it impacts the individual. Like if this is a negative thing, like let's say it's a early onset of schizophrenia or schizoaffective, and it's becoming an issue, like they can't take care of themselves, they're not able to go to work, then that leads to more of psychopathy, or maybe that's not the right word, more mental illness, right? Like that will lead me to severe mental illness. Not, okay, you get these messages, you're not sure what it is, you're curious about it, but you're still able to live your life, right? You're still able to have healthy relationships, you're taking care of yourself, you're going to work, you're taking care of everything you need to, then it's not really a problem. You're just more curious as to things that you're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely makes a difference as far as like how it's impacting you. Um, so share with me, are you allowed to speak about an example of a client that comes in to work with you, an anonymous uh, story or client case?
Pertaining to this subject,
Well, or pertaining to what you're able to see and sense beyond the veil, let's say, because right, like you see beyond this third dimension. Um, yeah.
okay, so I do establish boundaries within spirit and when I do therapy,
Hmm.
because I don't think that it's necessarily beneficial to talk about loved ones in therapy in that capacity. And I haven't quite had, okay, so I have an example of a patient that I'm working with. Now, she contacted me after her uncle passed. So her uncle was also a medium. And so he had me under his phone as Amber the medium. And so she reached out and she was like, hey, my uncle passed. I saw your number and I'm just wondering if I can connect. Um, I don't remember quite how that session went, but we had a conversation about it actually last week when we met. And she was saying how she feels like she's difficult to read. And so what ended up happening was the reason that we were supposed to meet was not for mediumship, was for therapy so that she can heal
Mm-hmm.
the past traumas that she's had. And we've been together for almost 2 years. It'll be like 2 years in June. And she has made a amazing transformation, right? And I owe it all to her. But then again, she's really open, and she had some like really frequent deaths recently. And just being able to talk about it and talk about the energy, or like saying she's had dreams, or whatever experiences, and know that it's a safe space for me to normalize that. And if things come up, then I can give her those messages, but because I have those boundaries up, more than likely, like, spirit doesn't come in that sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So what are your business is Blossom and Rise. What are do you have like specific things that you help women with?
Yes. So the mediumship is healing, right? It's offering healing through messages from their loved ones. That's one. I provide intuitive tarot messages. When I give messages, though, like they're not um, future. How do you
Oh,
say it?
yeah, yeah, they're not
Future focus. Okay, there we go. I can't say it.
power.
Sometimes my brain works a lot faster than my mouth can keep up
Yes.
with. So, no, I focus on the here and now, and I never give you information that you don't already know about. So it's all about clarifying and then providing intuitive guidance, right? And then, so what I became really known for with Blossom and Rise is the twin flame journey. Um, I myself have met my divine counterpart, was able to identify that relationship as my divine counterpart, And Spirit advised me to share my journey to physical union, which I did. And so I was in 2020, I was doing tarot readings. I had said to myself that I was not going to mess with tarot unless it was gifted to me. And so a neighbor of mine gifted me a deck. And so I was like, all right, I guess it's meant to be. And so I was learning how to do it. I had a Patreon, and it was great. I can read really well with intuitively with my tarot deck. I love my tarot deck. I keep it right here on the side of my desk at all times because I just love it. It's my favorite deck. But I started saying, okay, I'm going to just do twin flame specific readings, right? So, mind you, with my psychotherapeutic background and education, I'm meeting these people and they're talking about really toxic relationships, very unhealthy relationships that they're romanticizing. I'm like, hold up. You have this journey misunderstood. This is not healthy. And I'm going to tell you why I can say that. Let's work on how to get ourselves healed, how we can become in alignment with our higher self and connect with spirit. How do you know that this is a spiritual connection when you don't even understand your own energy? Like, let's make this make sense, right? And so then I started being known as that. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But I'm also a medium over here that's being neglected. And I'm also a therapist over here. And I'm like, ah. So making that clear break with my 40-hour job where I was working in a psych hospital. I loved my team that I was working with, but the dysfunctionality outside of my department, and then the incompetency of leadership that I saw, I was like, this is not what I was here for. Like, this is not what my soul is here for.
Yeah.
And even though I really adored my team, I was like, this can't be. This can't be. I need to be more of service. I need to step into my soul's purpose. And this is where I am today. So I said all of that. Hopefully I answered your question, but I really feel like it's really important to discuss the twin flame journey because of all the misinformation out there. We
Yeah.
see cult-like behavior out there about it. You know, people are seeking for soulmate connections and not doing the work necessary within themselves first, to satisfy that need, because we all have it within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Humans have the desire to worship or look for things outside of themselves. But if you understand energy and you understand consciousness, we come from source, therefore we are source as well. So we don't need to look outside of ourselves or worship this being that is up in the clouds. It's so much more than that. And so I really, really love educating people on this and helping to empower people to really look within themselves and really grow spiritually, energetically, open up their consciousness so that they don't have to be codependent on other people for guidance, so that they can learn how to seek themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your definition of twin flame?
Okay. So I know a lot of people love to say that the twin flame soul is split into two people. And I'm like, ooh, that's problematic for me. I'm
Yeah.
also a twin. I have a twin sister. But we're fraternal, but we're still two different beings, right? Even identical twins, they may look the same, but they have two different personalities. And so for you to say that I'm not a whole person by myself, that my soul is split into something else, that doesn't feel right to me. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I listen to a lot of Dolores Cannon and Schwartz. What's his first name? Is it Michael Schwartz? He's a hypnotherapist. Anywho, they both had these books I was listening to, and they're both talking about twin souls. And my understanding of it is that the souls were created at the same time of creation, right? And they said, two different books said the same thing. They said a soul could split itself into two bodies to have the learning experiences that it needs to, but that would be way too much for one soul in one lifetime to do that. And I said, that resonates as true for me. So I was like, that goes along with my understanding of that we're whole already. We're whole already. The opposite energy is a mirror to the things that you can help heal within yourself. They do not complete you. You are whole by yourself. And that's the story that needs to be told. We don't
Yeah,
need anybody else to complete
I
us.
agree. So it's kind of, yeah, so it's this myth, because it's not something that I've ever subscribed to, this idea of twin flame. Like, I mean, I've heard of, it kind of would float in, and I'd see it out there in the world and just be like,
Mhm.
oh, like I never really investigated it. But it sounds to me like there's this myth of that, yeah, that you're not complete unless you find your twin flame, right?
Right.
Like some
Yeah.
kind of like big, that's your purpose in life, is to find your
Yeah.
twin flame and be with your twin flame. And that, yeah, yeah, I can see
Yeah.
how
And it's heavily
very, very
romanticized.
puts people in a wild
Chase.
s
Yeah.
in
And you,
a place of desperation. I mean, how
yeah.
disempowering.
Yes. And then they'll be willing to stay in situations that are toxic and harmful, just because they believe that this is their twin flame and they're becoming obsessive. And that's not healthy. It's not healthy.
I'm curious, have you ever heard, there's one gentleman, that I know, older man, who does dowsing is his practice.
Hmm.
He was sharing with me that he was with his twin flame, but it was a very intense, toxic relationship. Have you ever heard that about twin flames? That
Yes. And I'm like, that sounds like a karmic partner.
hmm, hmm,
Karmic partners are souls that we have had throughout other lifetimes, and their purpose is to help us serve karma, either learn soul lessons or rectify soul experiences with one another. And those relationships can feel very intense because you know this, your soul recognizes each other just like in a divine counterpart. However, they're meant to teach you something and vice versa.
hmm,
But then we
hmm.
hold on to it thinking that it's more. I've been there. I've had a lot of toxic relationships throughout my life. That's how I know I can say that, right? Or it just feels so intense. And she's like, oh my God, no, this is the one. But it's so unhealthy. It's not unhealthy. Me and my divine counterpart are not toxic. We're not unhealthy. We help each other grow. We took time apart, as what you should do in physical separation, to focus on healing what wounds came up for each other. And we gave each other the space to do that. And then we're able to heal, but we have free will. So we didn't have to choose to heal ourselves, right? We could choose to ignore the fact that all these things are coming up, but we addressed it. So we took our time and we did that. And then we came into energetic alignment. And it still worked. Like we're not perfect human beings. It's a relationship just like any other relationship. We have to work through our own issues, things that he tells me about myself. And I'm like, really? Like through him, I really realized how much of an Aquarius I really am because I didn't really realize it until he came into my life. And I'm like, oh, that's not negative, but like I'm learning more about myself, right? And so it's a journey.
Yeah,
And so the journey continues.
yeah,
This
absolutely.
relationship.
So, what would you say about the term soulmate?
Soulmates.
Or
Okay, so we all have soulmates, and they can be romantic or they can be platonic. I've been able to identify soulmates in my life with my late grandmother. I've always felt connected to her on a soul level, always. So it was out question that she is a soulmate of mine, and she's still on my soul team. Um, Family members. Um, One I met a few years ago during COVID. I was working in a hospital, and as soon as I met her, I was like, my soul knows you. And she's felt the same way. And so I just address her as like maid of my soul. And
Oh,
it's strictly just platonic, but she's just like someone I just instantly recognize on an energetic blueprint. And she felt the same. And so it's like, yeah, like we totally are soulmates. And it makes sense. And it's not weird.
yeah.
Like I had surgery back in September, and she just came and laid in the bed with me. So it's like she drove an hour and a half just to lay in the bed with me, and then we just chit chatted, and
Yeah.
she rested with me, and then she went home, and just like it's
So,
beautiful. It's a beautiful
yeah, it's
connection.
almost like soulmates are really those relationships that are not as
Intense.
tumultuous.
It's really easy.
Yeah, very easy. You just get along. It's
Mhm.
understand each other. There's a knowing. It's
Mhm.
almost like part of your support team, I would say, right? And
Yes.
You can have more than just one soulmate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can have unlimited amount of soulmates, unlimited amount of karmic partners, only one divine counterpart though.
So talk about that. How do you know that you found your divine counterpart?
Okay, so when we met, it was after I got out of like a 3-year relationship, but it was over before it was over type of thing. And so I had to grieve my sense of normalcy in that matter, not necessarily like the relationship ending, but just like everything's about to change grief. And so after I was done grieving that, a friend of mine was like, you should go on Bumble. And I was like, what's Bumble? And she's like, it's a dating app. And I'm like, okay. So I go on there, and it's funny, the timer just said 26 minutes, and
Oh,
that will come up. I'll say why that I noticed that. Okay, so I went on Bumble, and then I saw that he liked me, and immediately I saw him and I was like, he looks familiar. Even though I'm really good with names and good with faces, and he lived 2 hours from where I was. And I'm like, I don't know. And he was 10 years older. So I contemplated on that. I was like, that's a big difference. I'm like, 10 years, and then he's 2 hours away. So I sat on it. And then I was like, you know what? I'm really attracted to him, so I'm just going to swipe right. And so we talked for a bit. We talked for like a month before we met up, and I was getting ready to go to the UK to the Arthur Findlay College for an advanced mediumship course there. And so I said, well, you know what? Let's just meet up before I go overseas. And so we met up. We met up at this coffee shop in South Lake Tahoe, which was an hour between the both of us. And so, you know, when you greet someone, you give them a hug. So he gave me a hug, and when he walked away, his energy stayed with me. And because I understand energy, I was like, my soul really recognizes this one. Like, this is different. I've never experienced anything like this before, but I knew on a soul level he was significant. So we talked, and he said he's a Gemini. I was like, I'm an Aquarius. I was like, when's your birthday? And he goes, May 26th. And I was like, you're lying. He goes, no. And I said, well, I'm January 26th. And we're exactly 10 years apart. And I'm like, you can't make that up. You can't make it up. So we spend the day like riding a bike around Lake Tahoe, which was awesome. And then it got to a point where I was like, I'm hungry, but I really want sushi, and I really want sushi at this one restaurant that's on the strip. It's not close to where we're at, right? So I'm thinking this in my mind. And so he goes, are you hungry? And I said, yeah, there's a restaurant right on the lake. And so I was like, yeah, we can go to that restaurant. He was like, actually, I was thinking sushi, and I was thinking this place. And it was the same place that I was thinking of that I wanted to go to. And I'm like, okay, so that's telepathy. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So we go there, and we spend like 4 hours there. The waitress, she just caught the vibe that we're on a really good date. Let us vibe. And we were together for 8 hours that day. 8 hours. And I was just like, this is so weird. This is the best date I ever had in my entire life. We just clicked, and it just worked. And I just knew. And it wasn't until he got triggered. We talked about the trigger, and then he disappeared. And so me knowing about attachment styles, I was like, oh, okay, let me go ahead and give him the space that he needs, because something obviously has come up. We talked about it. He's going to have to work through this thing.
Yeah.
But he disappeared for like months. And then came back. We had the same conversation, and then he disappeared, and came back and disappeared. And so it was like the in and out, in and out. But while he was out, I was already in therapy. So my therapist knew that I was a medium. And so I would talk to her about all these things. I was working on myself. And then it came to the point where we ended up coming back into alignment with each other. And so I was talking to my therapist about that. I was like, oh my God, I feel crazy. I feel crazy because I said that this was going to happen. Like, I said this, and I saw the signs, and I was able to listen and trust in it. And she goes, you're not crazy. You're intuitive. And I said, okay, what would have made it so that it would have been unhealthy for me throughout this whole time? And she goes, obsessiveness. You're not obsessed. Like, you knew what it was, but your life continued forward. Like, you held space for this energy, but you kept moving forward. And I said, oh, that's really helpful, because it's hard to recognize that within ourselves. That's why I always tell people, like, if you think you're in a twin flame journey or whatever, like, seek help. There are spiritual therapists out there like myself who understands and can help reframe things for you to make sense of things. But that was really important for me. I was already in therapy. So it helped. And then when Spirit told me to share my journey, I didn't realize at the time that I would be helping other people in the process. But it just took off. And
Yeah.
so
Wow. So eventually he came back.
he did, he figured it out and he came back.
He
But
figured
I felt another thing, I felt when his energy was shifting. Like I just knew that he was doing his work and I just knew that he was in a better space. He
yeah.
actually went back home to Michigan during that time. And so we were states apart. We're in California, so he was back home in Michigan. But I didn't need to talk to him to feel the transformation happening within him. But
Yeah.
that's because I understand my energy and I
Yeah.
understand his energy.
Right.
And so I'm able to do the discernment between the two. And
Yeah.
that's what's so important. Like, if you feel like you're on the journey, where's the spiritual development that you're supposed to be having? Where's this awakening that you're supposed to be having? If you're not having that, then let's talk about what a karmic partner is. And let's see why this theme is in your life. Let's get
Mm,
to the root of it.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, so fast. Relationships, man, talk about like the best transformational tool you
Yes.
could have, right? Is just be in relationship to learn about yourself and you know, go to the next level. I oh gosh, hopefully it'll come back to me. But yeah, it's almost like oh, this is what I wanted to say is that I think as women, I really loved what you said. It's like I knew I just had to give him space, right? Like, you didn't try to go and figure out like, "Hey, why are you ditching me?" Or,
Yeah.
"Hey, like, what's going on? Share with me. I'll help you work through." Like, I see so many, like, caring women, whether they're in partnerships or they're dating or whatever, it's like, you gotta let the other person have space and trust that they can handle themselves and that they can, it's like we start to meddle, and that's when the resentment builds. Like, I mean, I would say, I don't want to make a blanket statement that all men are like that they don't appreciate that. It's kind of like there's a what do you call it? It's kind of emasculating, right? Like they don't
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
want
Yeah.
mommies.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want a mom. And if you do have a guy that wants a mom, then good luck with that, right? Like that's going to be its own journey. But yeah, so just holding the container for him was enough while you kept doing your own inner work. It reminds there's a poem by Khalil Gibran, which I love, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's talks about marriage and how it's like you're meant to be two pillars, not joined
One.
or not
Right.
leaning on each other, just you're on your own path, but you're there for each other, but that's it. There's space in between the two of
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, beautiful.
Tanya, I hate to do this, but I have to
You have to
use
go.
the
Okay.
loo. I have to use
Oh, yeah.
the loo. So can I just get like a
Yeah,
2 minute,
two
three
minutes.
minutes?
I'll keep talking here. Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
So, yeah, so one thing I wanted to talk about while she's taking a break, and she'll be back here in a minute to share what offer set she has available. But from in my work with doing family constellations work for women in their relationships, is that we have to move out of that. If we want to deepen into relationship and actually grow, we have to move out of that infatuation phase, that kind of blind love phase, that where it's all fireworks and everything's great and easy and fun and exciting. Like eventually over time, like that, and I'm sure I'm probably preaching to the choir, but that fades, right? And then you have to find something else, something deeper to connect with. And it's usually during that time when the stuff comes up. So Amber, I was just saying that after that initial honeymoon phase
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
relationships go through, like, oh, this is, it's all new and it's
Yeah.
just like, it's, heaven on earth. And then the stuff comes up, right? Then the triggers come up and then all
Yeah.
that. I was just explaining, like, if you really want, you have to then transform into mature love. Like,
Yeah.
and what is love really? Like, that's really the question. What is love really? Is love just about feeling good? It really isn't, right?
No, no. There's that unconditional aspect of it.
Yeah.
Um, that we are that, we come from that. And then when we incarnate into this human body, we forget. I mean, it makes sense for us to forget these things because if we knew everything that our soul knows, then there would be no point of us being here. We came to learn and have experiences, but we all originate from this creation of love. And so it's within us, not out of us.
Yeah.
And that's what we forget. And
Yeah.
love is not easy to say that loving oneself, that sounds super easy, but it's not based on our life experiences and our attachment styles, which come from childhood. Whether or not we had the support and the love from childhood, if we had someone that we could attach to securely. If
Mhm.
not, then your whole view of love is completely skewed
Yeah.
until you're able to heal that aspect of yourself,
Right.
which is absolutely doable. It just
Yeah.
takes work. And a lot of people don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
But no work, no play,
Yeah.
right?
It's like my partner says, pain isn't always a bad thing, you know?
No, no,
It's not always a bad thing.
at
Sometimes we
all.
need it to grow, you know?
That's
Um,
right.
yeah. Uh, so before we hop off, Amber, what are different ways that women can work with you, and how can they find you? What kind of offers do you have right now?
Okay, so I am available for mediumship in intuitive tarot messages. That can be found in my on my website. I on Substack. I have my email list on Substack, and I have a growing community over there. I will be hosting a monthly spiritual development circle, and that would be second tier. Second tier is paid, but there's a whole bunch of free content that I do provide. I also have a podcast called the Blossom and Rise podcast. It's on Substack, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Music / Audible. The first season, I am sampling John Coltrane's A Love Supreme album and talking about that in aspects of our own spiritual awakening. And so I'll be releasing episode 3 on Wednesday. So if you're interested, everything is on my website. Oh, yeah. And then Blossom into my power course. It's a 12-week course of personal and spiritual transformation and development. I'm really excited about that. For more information, please check out my website, which is down below, www.blossomrise.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber, for being here, and just, yeah, I I really enjoyed talking about all the different relationships, and getting some clarity on what they all are and what they can all yeah, bring into your life.
I do want to say one thing that I forgot to mention about the twin flame journey is
Yeah.
that we already have feminine and masculine energies within us already. That's another thing that makes us whole. Sometimes we're more feminine, sometimes we're more masculine. I know that I'm naturally feminine, but sometimes the masculine outweighs that. And for me, that's not, I mean, it's not, I'm not gonna say it's negative, but it's not my natural state. So when I become more critical, more analytical, instead of focusing on my natural intuitiveness and softness, my
Mm.
partner calls that out and he helps to balance that with myself because he has a lot of feminine energies as well. And so sometimes we'll switch, and that's
Mm.
okay. But we have those energies within us naturally, which means that we're naturally whole as one soul. And there's
Gotcha.
no gender in energy either. It's
There's
just
no
duality,
gender energy. Yeah.
gender and energy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting. I've also
Yeah.
heard that that at a when we pass and we're back to our soul essence, that
Yes.
isn't this sense of like, oh, I'm a woman or I'm a man. It's
Mhm.
I just
So
right? Yeah.
it's interesting. No, like when I read with mediumship, they'll send me information for what they want me to see. Like sometimes they'll come in their 40s, but they passed in their 80s. And I'm like, well, look, I'm just telling you how they're portraying themselves. They don't
Yeah.
always portray themselves as when they pass. Maybe they don't like how they look when they pass. You know what I mean? So it's definitely energy. At the end of the
Mm.
day, it's energy.
Yeah. Awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Amber, and thanks to everyone who are watching. And yeah, be sure to go to her website, check her out. And thanks so much, Amber. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys. Talk to you sooner than later.
Okay.